Sometimes people get confused with Babylon because it talked about the destruction of Babylon, and we know that Babylon, it collapsed, it fell. Babylon fell. There was a time in history where the temple was destroyed, and all these other things have happened. This has happened in past history. But oftentimes in God's word, we see this repeat of things happen, or it's a precursor of what is to come in the end times. The way we know the difference in Scripture when it describes that, it talks about how Babylon was fallen and there were all these things that took place, but it wasn't completely destroyed to the point where there's no life, there's no existence, you will never be in existence again. There's a rising again, and it started with Saddam Hussein, who promised he was going to rebuild Babylon and everything, and he was, yes. So the way we know that it's talking about the last days, because there are specific things in the prophets that they're talking about, that this couldn't have been the prior destruction of Babylon, or when when they were
back in 600 BC.
Yes,
I think it was.
Pay attention to that when you're reading the prophets, because very often it'll talk about things that are going on in the last days and the gathering of every nation and every tribe, tongue, and people. Well, that didn't happen back then. And so when you see things like that being described, it's not talking about way back when. It's talking about what we're about to come into the future here. I did want to take you to Revelation 18 real quick. Like, this is just significant with what we're reading, because remember the message again, and we're talking about patterns. And another angel followed, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city. Okay, that's Revelation 14:8. Go to 17, chapter 17. And it says, then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. What did we just read in Isaiah? That same phrase. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of the names of blasphemy, having, here's the scarlet beast. Now we know the color of the beast. Remember we were just reading about the beast, and then, this beast is scarlet, full of the names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns, the same beast, the dragon. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup, full of the abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. The colors worn by the Roman Catholic Vatican are purple and scarlet, except the Pope. He wears white. But all their bishops and whatnot, they wear purple and they wear scarlet. And they're adorned with gold. Think about the Vatican, the city, adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup. They always have that golden cup they're holding, full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. If you know anything about Mass, they believe that the bread actually turns into the body of Jesus, and the wine into the blood. Yeah, and they believe that it's literal. It turns into when they take it.
So does the Lutheran Church.
Yeah. Do they?
Yeah.
Oh.
That I was raised in. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So it's talking about false religion here. It says, and on her forehead a name was written, Mystery Babylon, the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. But the angel said to me, why do you marvel? I tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that you saw was and is not, and will ascend out of the bottomless pit and go to perdition. Okay, that's describing the beast with the 7 heads and the 10 horns and the so on. Okay, it's talking about these nations, and it's talking about the beast. It was, is not, and will ascend out of the bottomless pit. So it's like it was throughout time in history, and then it was not. The earth's just kind of going on, and time is going on, and things are happening, And now we get to the end times, and now it's being risen again out of the bottomless pit here. And those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they see the beast that was and is not and yet is. Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are the 7 mountains. We talked about kingdoms and mountains, and it's the 7 mountains on which the woman sits. It's this religious system that sits on these 7 mountains, which represent the political systems on which the woman sits. And remember, the 7, there was 10 horns, but 3 were plucked up. So there's now only 7 horns left. So basically 7 ruling kings with these 7 heads on which the woman sits. There are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen. One is, okay, this describes the beast who was, is not, and will ascend. The beast that was and is himself also the 8th, and is of the 7 heads, and is going to perdition. I think all that to say, it's describing this one world government where you have these rising and falling of powers, and was and is not, and then is again. It's risen again. The Holy Roman Empire fell years ago, but it is being resurrected, the Holy Roman Empire. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. These will make war with the Lamb. Here we see it again. And the Lamb will overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those who are with him are called chosen and faithful. Then he said to me, the waters which you saw, where the harlot sits, are the peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. So now it's talking about a larger grouping, of the world. Then the 10 horns which you saw on the beast, these will hate the harlot. This is interesting. These kings are going to hate that false religious system. They're going to hate the harlot. They will make her desolate and naked, eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God has put it in their hearts to fulfill his purpose, to be of one mind, and to give their kingdom to the beast, until the words of God are fulfilled. And the woman whom you saw is that great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. After these things I saw another angel coming from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated with his glory. He cried out, and he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people. Isn't that interesting? Lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues. For her sins have reached to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. You see this culmination of just the ripening of sin and the saints coming to just the end of this persecution and perseverance and enduring to the end and all this stuff. And then he says, another voice from heaven, Come out of her, my people. So you have this description of what's taking place, ending with this idea of God calling up his saints, his witnesses, his people. That was kind of a long journey out of that, but we're almost done with chapter 14 here. Go ahead, Luann, and read verses 9 through 11.
In 14 or?
In Revelation 14. We're back now to the root of where we're at.
Okay, then a third angel followed them, shouting, Anyone who worships the beast and his statue, or who accepts his mark on the forehead or the hand, must drink the wine of God's wrath. It is poured out undiluted into God's cup of wrath. And they will be tormented with fire and burning sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and the Lamb. The smoke of their torment rises forever and ever, and they will have no relief day or night. For they have worshipped the beast and his statue and have accepted the mark of his name. Let this encourage God's holy people to endure persecution patiently and remain firm to the end, obeying his commands and trusting in Jesus. And I heard a voice from heaven saying, "Write this down. Blessed are those who die in the Lord from now on." Yes, says the Spirit, they are blessed indeed, for they will rest from all their toils and trials, for their good deeds follow them.
Think about the sequence of everything we've been reading in Isaiah, in chapter 17 and 18 of Revelation that we just read. In other areas of Scripture, this is addressed as well. Now here we have it again, and I'm going to go back to verse 9 again. Then a third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on their forehead or on his hand, he himself shall also drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out full strength into the cup of his indignation. He shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascends forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night who worship the beast and his image, and whoever receives the mark of his name." So this is talking about God pouring out his wrath, but it's also talking about forever and ever, an eternal wrath, an eternal torment that's going to take place. The smoke of their torment ascends forever and ever. They have no rest night or day. I mean,
Eternal.
this
They don't just
gives us
cease to be
cause.
in relationship with God.
Yes,
They have eternal torment.
right. And this gives us cause to really be praying for our loved ones, to really, there's times where when we think about the future, their potential future, we need to be crying out for their souls more than we do. We need to be looking for those moments to speak into their life. And sometimes even when that means being rejected by family members or friends or whatever, because this is the forever. I mean, I wouldn't even want my worst enemy to be tormented forever and ever and ever. But the problem is when they make the choice to reject God, they're going to be it's the judgment on Satan, eternal torment forever and ever in the lake of fire. They're going with their father, the devil. If you're of your father, the devil, you're going to be with your father, the devil. And so, but that's why Christ came, because he doesn't want anyone to go there. God is not willing that any should perish. Christ came to give us salvation, that we would not have to face this, but not only that reason alone, but because he loves us and wants fellowship with us. He has a beautiful plan for our eternity. And it's a good plan, and it's a plan of hope, and where every tear will be wiped away. And there is so much we have to look forward to, but we're not there yet. And there's many going on this path of destruction that's going to lead them to this eternal torment. And that, when I really allow that to sink in, I've had these moments where I just bawl and cry out to the Lord for the people that I love, because, like I said, even my worst enemy, I would not want to have to suffer for eternal.
I told my daughter at one point when I wasn't sure, and she wasn't sure either. I said, "You know what? If I knew that you weren't saved, this is how important it is to me.
Right.
It would be better that you were never born." And that, the look on her face, and I said, and I mean it. I would felt better that I never conceived you.
Yeah.
So.
But remember the story of Lazarus.
Because
he really wanted his kin to know.
His brothers, to be forewarned. Yes.
But they are.
Yeah, but they don't see
but
it.
They don't
here's
want
the
to
problem.
see it. They don't.
Because those
they
people don't
eyes.
think there's gonna be such a thing. So many people think. Because I asked my daughter once, I said, "What do you think's gonna happen to you when you die?" And she said, "Just gonna go back to the earth, back to dust." And I said, "And that's it? Nothing? No heaven or hell?" She goes, "I don't think so, Mom." It's like, wow.
Yeah.
You know what? What if? What if you were wrong and I am right and the Bible is right? Isn't it worth checking out? Because this is eternity.
Right. Well, the truth is, people don't want to look at their sin. They don't want to accept the truth. They don't want to even examine the potential of it, because that means that
Accountability.
it's accountability and the life change.
Right.
But the problem is they have a misconception, because they think they've got to somehow change all their ways, and when their desires go in one direction. And, how am I going to live up to this or whatever? But the thing is, it's God who changes us. And that's one of the things they don't understand. You come as you are and leave your heart to the Lord. But the first step is believing Him,
Right.
believing His word and trusting in Him. And you can't get past anything else until you do that, because they're buying into the deception, because they really don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to know.
No.
And when you talk about things that are hard like that, who wants to hear that, No one wants to hear that. I don't like talking about it or hearing about it. I mean, that's harsh stuff to teach.
Sure.
I don't like teaching it, but I have to teach it, because if I love you, and if I love my neighbor, and if I love my children, I need to speak it out and let them know, and let them know that there's hope and there's good news, and they don't have to go there. But God is holy, and He has to judge sin, or ultimately we're all going to die in our sin forever anyway. So it's like He is trying to get the message out there to rescue those who will listen to it. And He is long suffering.
And we need to be too, with our loved ones.
Yes. We don't have as much time in the earth. God has been here for a while.
True.
I want to go to Isaiah 34 for a second, okay, after what we just read there. Isaiah 34. This is amazing to me when I go back into the prophets of the Old Testament, how many years before, hundreds of thousands, 1,000 years before this, before Revelation was written, these words were written by another prophet, and different prophets in different ways, and how it all comes together is just such an incredible thing.
Yeah, prophecy fulfilled, so
Yeah.
builds your faith.
It really does.
Really.
It
Truly.
makes you believe the
Yeah.
word, because
Yeah.
you're like, well, gosh, that came true.
Okay, I'm going to start at verse 1. Come near, you nations, and hear, and heed, you people. Let the earth hear, and all that is in it, the world and all the things that come forth from it. For the indignation of the Lord is against all nations, and His fury against all their armies. He has utterly destroyed them. He has given them over to the slaughter. Also their slain shall be thrown out. The stench shall rise from their corpses, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood. All the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled up like a scroll. That's Revelation. You can go to put a notation there, Revelation 6:12-17. All their hosts shall fall down as a leaf falls from the vine. Remember, it talks about these kinds of things in Revelation as well. And as fruit falling from a fig tree. For my sword shall be bathed in heaven. Indeed, it shall come down on Edom and on the people of my curse for judgment. The sword of the Lord is filled with blood. It is made overflowing with fatness, the blood of the lambs and goats, with the fat of the kidneys of rams. For the Lord has a sacrifice in Bozrah, and a great slaughter in the land of Edom. The wild ox shall come down with them, and the young bulls with the mighty bulls. Their land shall be soaked with blood, and their dust saturated with fatness. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance, the year of recompense for the cause of Zion. And it continues on. There's more description of what's going to happen in the end times. But it ends up in verse 16. Search from the book of the Lord and read. Not one of these shall fail, not one shall lack her mate. For my mouth has commanded it, and His Spirit has gathered them. He has cast the lot for them, and His hand has divided it among them with the measuring line. They shall possess it forever. From generation to generation they shall dwell in it. And it's talking about, there's more description there. So anyway, without going into all that. So, but those are references that you can continue to read in more in depth if you want to go into those later too on your own. But here again, we just see the same kind of picture again. Okay, verse 12. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus Christ. Verse 12 takes a moment to address the saints. What are they being encouraged or admonished with? Verse 12 of Revelation 14.
Keeping the commandments and the faith.
Endure persecution, patiently, and remain firm to the end, obeying his commands and trusting in Jesus.
It's that patience is also a word, steadfastness or perseverance. Again, we see that perseverance, steadfastness. So here is the steadfastness, perseverance, patience of the saints. And again, we have saints. Well, who are the saints? It describes again who the saints are. Remember, we talked about it will specifically tell you who they are. Those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. So this is the patience of the saints. You know, we talked back about the 144,000 Jews. We talked about the remnant. These are the ones who keep the commandments of God as well. Now they don't quite make the connection yet with the Messiah, but I think they're going to. And I think there's many that are Messianic Jews that are now, there's quite a few. And so I think that those who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus, there's kind of this combination of those who believe God, the one same God. And so it says, then I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord from now on. Yes, says the Spirit, that they may rest from their labors and their works. Again, what is he saying to them? He's saying that they're blessed. You'd think, well, how can they be blessed if they're dead? They're dying in the Lord. What makes them blessed? Because that they may rest from their labors and their works follow them. They are blessed because they endured. They were steadfast. They are saved for eternity. They aren't going to experience eternal wrath of God. They are not going to experience eternal wrath of Satan. They're going to finally come in to rest. You know, their faith is going to pay off in the end. And they will be able to rest from their labor and their works. And, you know, there will just be a time of rejoicing. Let's see, Revelation 13:10. Oh, again, is that verse that says, he who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. In other words, in the end, God's going to deal with them. In the, you know, they're the ones that are leading into captivity and killing with the sword, but in the end, it's going to come on their own heads. And this is the patience of the saints and the faith of the saints. You know, hang in there, hang on. And that, you know, basically they even unto death, they are patient, you know, and they're just waiting and hanging on to their faith in spite of it all. Let's go to Daniel 7 and verse 19. Okay, Daniel 7, verse 19, it says, then I wish to know the truth about the four beasts which were different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with its teeth of iron and its nails of bronze, which devoured and broke in pieces and trampled the residue with its feet. And the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn which came up before which 3 fell, namely that horn which had eyes and a mouth, which spoke pompous words. He was really curious about that one horn that spoke the pompous word, whose appearance was greater than his fellows. I was watching, and the same horn was making war against the saints. Here we have it again. And prevailing against them. Remember, God gave him authority and permission to overcome and prevail, but not forever. He was making war against the saints and prevailing against them until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was made in favor of the saints of the Most High. And the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. So it talks about the fourth beast again. The fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on the earth, which shall be different from all other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, trample it, and break it in pieces. The 10 horns are the 10 kings, who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall arise after them. And he shall be different from the first ones. The other is that little horn that rises up shall be different. He shall be different from the first one. So it's a he, it's a human being. And shall subdue 3 kings. Remember the 10 horns and 3 were subdued? That's the 3 that were taken down. Okay. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints or wear them out, the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. We talked about how that's been happening. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time for 3.5 years. So the saints are going to really go through it for 3.5 years, because Satan, remember what we read in chapter 12 of Revelation, has great wrath. He came to persecute Israel, and then he went after their offspring, which is the saints, the church. And he's going to have 3.5 years to do what he will with that. But the court shall be seated, the heavenly court. There's a courtroom in heaven. That court shall be seated, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and destroy it forever. Then the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people, the saints of the Most High. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. So back to Revelation 14.